So how is wisdom developed from jhana? Well, we talked about jhana, but how is wisdom developed? So we practice jhana, and there is a misconception that the deeper in jhana that you go, you stop thinking. Well, that's not going to help you with wisdom, and that's not the purpose of Buddhist meditation. It's not to subside all thinking, but to help us to gain wisdom. So how does that work between jhana, chanting, between meditation and wisdom? Or when it is said that when we sit meditation and we stop our thinking, we should not take that literally. That's not the purpose of meditation. But what happens is that we soak ourselves in this four jhanic experience, and we allow the subtle mental activity with regard to the path of nirvana to rise. The difference now is that we have control of the thought. Before we practice meditation, right, we have our wandering thoughts. They go all over the place. But now we have control when we use specific thoughts to help us to uncover our wisdom. So that's the difference now, that we use our thoughts to help us to see things clearly. So technically, you come back to the first jhana with that mental activity. And behind all that is the saturated influence of those jhanas. So you come down in a sense and you've gone on. You practice meditation to settle the mind. You don't stop there. Then from there you utilize your thoughts to help you see the word. Guanta. Wangsa, you see the word, not just to suppress our thinking. The other method is to remain in discursive, wandering thoughts. Jumping from thought to thought, that's discursive. But then you just wait for even higher transcendental experience to come. You just sit there and you wait. That's another method. Because you have been saturated in the higher spiritual experience, that you deliberately allow subtle mental activities to arise. And that is what's necessary for the purpose of developing wisdom. So in other words, you don't cause rise to thinking for nothing. You cause rise to thinking with the purpose of developing wisdom, uncovering wisdom. You don't lose yourself in this submersion of jhana, meditative bliss. Meditative bliss, with the mind calm, you just don't get stuck there. But you are in a state where you are ready for the next step to occur. There's some people who think that you can develop prajna, order, right, or wisdom, without ever going through jhana by sheer force of intellectual penetration, backed up by very strict life. So there are people who think that you can achieve enlightenment, wisdom, without going through jhana. This is very dry insight, has not been saturated in the moisture, as it were, of high jhanic experience. So there is a great deal of discussion whether that is the way or not. But of course, I think there are multiple ways of getting there. Perhaps this group of people think you don't need jhana to get to enlightenment. Other groups say you need to have jhana in order to get to enlightenment. The traditional way is to go through the proper training. Unless you have special abilities, it's not included in here. But if we are regular people, and we should follow the regular path, and that is to go through jhanas first. Because going through jhana, that we are more conducive to wisdom development. We are more conducive to a higher state of consciousness. Because we're modifying ourselves. We're getting our body and mind ready for the acceptance of the higher level of consciousness. If we don't do the preliminary work, we don't do the preparation, then when we have flashes of insight, we won't be able to catch them. Where you see things, you see impermanence, but you don't recognize. That's what it means. You see death, but then you don't recognize impermanence. You don't recognize no self. But if we have been absorbed in meditation, it helps us to develop wisdom, to grow wisdom. This is a traditional way of getting there. Jhana experiences refine the whole being, and the insight is able to develop from there. and from there can deliberately spark off the development of wisdom. So before we practice meditation, we did not recognize reality, true reality. We practice meditation, our mind now is calming down. We can see things more clearly. And we don't stop there, but we use our thought, our contemplation, guansa. We use our contemplation to help us to develop wisdom. So that's the purpose of practicing meditation, is to uncover wisdom. And sometimes in this process, as we change, there could be side effects. For example, not everybody goes through this, but it is possible that we can ourselves go through this. When we change and we unify our personalities, we are going through this, you can say it's very positive change, but on the outside, people might not understand it and we see us differently. And they may say, what has happened to you? You are now completely different. And they may not understand that. For example, when we have integrated our energies and we have become a different person because we inhibit certain personalities, we don't get angry anymore, we don't pursue sensuous pleasures anymore, we are in a way inhibiting our certain personalities. And we maybe become more self-reflecting, we more become observant of our inner mental activity, and this will result in a personality change. And in some cases, you may be incapable of any response. You may appear to be wooden, even stupid, because you're not very responsive. And some people go through this phase of their spiritual life as they practice, and they may appear very stupid to others because they're not being very reactive. This is because they are inhibiting all their mechanical reactive processes. Their real spontaneity has not yet developed, meaning that wisdom has not yet developed. They're going through this phase and their wisdom has not yet developed, and so they are going through this awkward transition, this awkward state of being. And they may find themselves quite odd and strange and even stupid at times because they're no longer quick, they're not as smart as they used to be. That's how people perceive them, because before it was all reaction, emotional reaction, so they were very quick in shooting back with a sarcastic response or a retort. Before, they did not check their emotions and they would just act emotionally. But now, in the process of practicing meditations and mindfulness, they have become more conscious and they've begun to slow down. And therefore, they're being more careful with their thought, their speech, their actions. But people don't see the transition and they misunderstand that they're being slow and stupid, unfortunately. So that's what's happening here. When people go through this stupid phase, it is a bit difficult for their friends to understand what is happening. But it is a genuine positive thing to go through. And sometimes this is quite necessary. We have to go through that to slow ourselves down in order to get to where we want. Just like you're driving on a freeway at 70 miles an hour, and if you want to exit, you have to slow down, right? You can't just make a turn right away at 70 miles an hour, that speed, you're going to flip over, you're going to hurt yourself. So people are going through that transition, and when people observe it, they don't understand what is it that's happening in their minds. So it could last for a few days, even a few years, and people think that you're really stupid because your mind doesn't work like in the sort of way that it used to. People may think. They will say, what's the matter with you? You used to be so great. You used to be so fun, so active. What has happened to you? Because they don't see the inner transitions, right? The inner transformation that this person is going through. They look like a block of wood. And for them, this is quite good. It's not something to be unhappy about. You know you're making progress. You know you're making that transitions and you're moving towards the goal. So you feel happy about it. But people looking at you, they may not appreciate that and they don't understand what is it that's going on. You try to carry on with your normal life, but they don't see that. You may go into a party You may drink a few drinks, eat some food, but you're not very talkative. You're not very social with other people because you're now more absorbed, and people don't see that. But you can see that within yourself, and if you have convictions, commitment to the practice, you feel at ease. People may not understand it, but you are quite happy of being yourself and quite aware that you are making that transition. So there is nothing wrong that we should feel ashamed or unhappy, because that's part of the transition, right? So when we practice meditation, we're going through this phase, moving away from our sensuous pleasure and trying to absorb our energies, absorb in meditation, be mindful. And we're going through this transition. We are inhibiting certain personalities that we don't want to surface. And that transition can make us feel awkward at times, and people may see that. And that's okay, because we are going through that transition. And once we get to the other side, we will realize for ourselves that it is quite a beautiful thing to go through. And we should understand that the purpose of meditation is not to just get stuck in a state of meditative bliss or a state of no thoughts, but to now use thoughts under our control to cause rise to wisdom, to develop wisdom. So again, the purpose of meditation, Buddhist meditation, is to make our mind more conducive to the development of wisdom.